Schools have some work to do with new data showing JCPS students are behind compared to others across Kentucky.
Just hours ago, we got our first look at the state's annual report card on public schools and new JCPS test score details. Jim Stratman has been going over the numbers, Jim, all morning long, and you're breaking down the report's findings now.
Yeah, that's right, Eric and Grace. Really, it's a mixed bag kind of report. There are some positives, there are some negatives, like the fact that 25 of the 28 lowest scoring schools in the state right here in Jefferson County. But if you're someone like Dr. Marty Polio, you're probably focusing more on the positives, and there is reason to do that, as you said. I've been pouring through these numbers all morning long. We are seeing some improvements, especially in areas like reading and math when it comes to younger students as we look to continue to rebound from the pandemic learning loss. 87% of JCPS students are graduating high school, which is also a big boost. That is an all-time high. The graduation gap between black and white students is nearly half of what it was 5 years ago, and 86.5% of black students are graduating high school, which again, another all-time high. Those are some very positive statistics, and as I mentioned, when you dive into the actual learning curriculum parts of this assessment, you do see quite a bit of improvement as well in math and reading scores across the district, especially when it comes to 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. Dr. Polio says the district still has a long way to go, but overall, this is positive for him.
When we talk about our future state, I want to be clear. I think these are signs that we are moving in the right direction.
Dr. Polio believes having a unified curriculum for the district will help push these numbers even further up in the coming years. And he was clear that JCPS is not where it wants to be. There are still problems with the district that he wants addressed. Compared to Kentucky as a whole, the district's numbers do not look nearly as good. And one problem that stands out both here in JCPS and also across the state is chronic absenteeism. You've heard that talked about quite a bit with Dr. Polio over the summer and through this school year already. We're going to dive more into those statistics coming up here in the next half hour. Eric, Grace?
All right, Jim, thanks. We'll look forward to that. For a more in-depth look at the results, JCPS parents can see exactly where their kids' schools rank by visiting our website, WHAS11.com.
Right now, we're sticking with JCPS because the board is looking for a replacement for Chairwoman Diane Porter, who you might remember resigned for health reasons. Porter represented District 1, which you can see includes much of West Louisville and downtown. She became the leader of the school board in 2012. She was really a staple at the Board of Education. To be eligible for the vacant seat, you must be registered to vote in the district. Applications are open now and need to be submitted to the board by November 28th. The board will select from eligible applicants by December 23rd. We have a link to the application in this story on WHAS11.com.
The jury selection process will continue today in the federal trial of former LMPD officer Brett Hankinson. He's accused of two things: using excessive force and violating Breonna Taylor's civil rights when he blindly fired 10 shots into her apartment. Some of those bullets went into a neighboring apartment. Tuesday, more than 40 new potential jurors were brought in to be interviewed by the judge and attorneys. This was in addition to the 40 interviewed on Monday. The judge did not disclose if any jurors have been selected yet. A total of 16 people will be chosen to serve in Hankinson's trial. That's 12 jurors and 4 alternates.
Veterans Club founder Jeremy Harrell is expected to make his first court appearance today. The Army veteran is accused of fraudulently receiving more than $100,000 worth of unemployment benefits from Veterans Affairs. A federal grand jury indictment states Harrell started receiving benefits in 2011 and agreed to tell the VA if he returned to work. Harrell then founded the Veterans Club in 2019. Investigators say Harrell's volunteer work with the organization shows he was capable of maintaining employment, making him ineligible to receive benefits. He's expected in court this morning at 10:30.
A man is now facing upwards of 12 years in prison after pleading guilty to arson after burning down a historic cabin in Clarksville. The Clark County prosecutor says Jason Fossey set a cabin, the George Rogers Clark home site, on fire in May of 2021. That was a replica of Clark's retirement home. Now, the original cabin was destroyed in the 1800s. It was rebuilt and moved to Clarksville in 2001. Fossey will be sentenced on November 27th.
This morning, an Indiana man is facing charges in a decades-old cold case. The murder happened in Seymour in 1962. WHAS 11's Taylor Woods and photojournalist Addie Hill spoke to the family of the victim, Clifford Smith.
On Halloween, October 31, 1982, Smith was shot in the head at age 24. 41 years later to the date, Indiana State Police make an arrest. 61-year-old Ronald J. Anderson, now charged with Smith's death.
I'm glad that they finally are bringing a closure to this, allowing us to let our brother rest in peace.
Indiana State Police say Clifford Smith's body was discovered near this area along the Wright River in 1982. Leonard Smith is Clifford's brother. He was just 22 when Clifford died. He says Ronald Anderson is Smith's brother-in-law.
We've always said that that's who done it.
ISP says in the late hours on October 30th, 1982, Anderson and Smith were at a house together. Anderson took a gun from the home and left with Smith in a vehicle, and he was never seen alive after that night. Police say this case has been passed down to new investigators over the years.
It ultimately led to where we had enough information to present the case to the prosecutor.
Sergeant Stephen Wills says the help of technology and fresh sets of eyes looking at the case help provide answers.
But I imagine it's kind of a sigh of relief after all these years to finally get that word that an arrest has been made in the death of their loved one.
In Seymour, Taylor Woods, WHAS11 on your side.
More than 40 years later, the motive for the murder is still unclear. Anderson is being held at the Jackson County Jail.